What if your husband's final kiss ended in blood against the same wall they shared it? Subscribe now, because some walls remember everything. Nina had always believed that love was built in layers. Like the mill-full pastries she crafted each morning at her boutique bakery in Santa Fe. Each layer delicate, buttery, precise. Her marriage to Ethan felt that way, too, measured, tender, beautiful in its symmetry. For 8 years, they lived in quiet rhythm. He, a university lecturer in American literature, admired for his intellect and quiet humor. She, the queen of flour and sugar, whose cakes made even the sternest critics close their eyes in delight. To the outside world, they were enviable, a portrait of stability and quiet sophistication. Nina posted artful shots of their breakfasts, their dog, even Ethan reading by the window in soft light. Her followers admired not just the pastries, but the mood of her life. #Sunday with Ethan was a minor trend in a cozy corner of domestic Instagram. But then came Leela. It started innocently enough. A graduate intern from the art school down the street, working on a photography series about local artisans. She had approached Nina at the bakery counter one Tuesday morning, wide-eyed and sweet-voiced, asking to document Nina's process for a student project. "I love the vulnerability of food," Leela had said, tucking a strand of copper hair behind one ear. "The intimacy of watching someone create something with their hands." Nina had smiled. Artists always spoke like that. And Nina appreciated passion. She granted the request, letting Leela photograph her kneading, whipping, glazing. The girl was polite, always asking permission, offering edited prints as thanks. Over time, she lingered, not just for photos, but to help carry trays, wash dishes, test new lemon curd fillings. And then, Ethan. One afternoon, Leela dropped off a set of black and white prints while Ethan was helping Nina install new lighting in the back of the shop. Nina had introduced them, and Leela had extended her hand like it was a moment worth framing. After that, Leela seemed to come by more often during Ethan's visits. Her compliments to Nina turned increasingly Ethan-adjacent. "You must love having someone so literary at home. Does he read you bedtime poetry? Ethan has that quiet strength. The kind you rarely see in our generation." Nina laughed him off, at first, but something about the tone stuck with her. Then came the late nights. Ethan had always been a man of routine. Home by 6, a glass of Bordeaux, slow jazz while Nina cooked. But recently, his schedule shifted. Department meetings, he said, faculty workshops, guest lectures, all plausible, but the new cologne, the new shirts, the way he started using moisturizer, that was new. Still, Nina told herself it was nothing. She even posted a TikTok about the perks of being with a man who aged like a wine cellar. Her audience swooned. Until that Friday. It was raining, the kind of soft, soaking rain that made the adobe walls of Santa Fe smell of earth and memory. Nina had closed shop early. She craved the comfort of home, of warm soup and Ethan's voice recounting some obscure 19th-century writer. As she turned the corner toward their street, she saw them, Ethan, standing under the awning of the bookstore, laughing, Leela, reaching up, brushing something off his shoulder. Too close. Nina didn't stop. She walked past like she hadn't seen. But the image burned. That night, as Ethan talked about Whitman and war poetry, Nina nodded, smiled, kissed him goodnight, then lay awake. For hours. Was it just admiration? Leela was young, passionate. Maybe she clung to Ethan like a mentor. Maybe she was lonely. But Nina remembered the look. Not just Leela's, but Ethan's. That microsecond where eyes linger too long. Where an inhale becomes silent confirmation. Where a touch is memorized. Not accidental. She couldn't prove it. She couldn't confront it. Instead, she began to watch. Not with cameras, but with the trained precision of a baker who knows the difference between 375 and 385 degrees just by scent. She saw how Leela's visits coincided with Ethan's appearances. How the compliments grew bolder. How Ethan, who once only had eyes for her eclairs, now seemed distracted even in bed. She saw it in the way he hesitated before answering where he'd been. In the silence when she asked if he liked the new frosting. In the absence of his smile. Still, she baked, she smiled, she photographed, but the layers began to crack. Because sometimes, love isn't lost all at once. It unravels like butter left too long in the sun. And Nina, she began to chill, not out of malice, but out of necessity, because even a mill full, no matter how beautiful, collapses if the layers stop supporting each other. And something, Nina knew, had shifted in their foundation. She just didn't know yet how much blood it would cost to rebuild. But she would, soon. Nina sat alone in the bakery office after closing, the air scented with cooling raspberry scones and silence. Her hands moved without thought, wiping the same spot on the desk over and over, a ritual to distract from the ache in her chest. The phone in her hand felt heavier than it should, the weight of suspicion growing with each passing second. Ethan's old iPhone, left forgotten in a drawer months ago, still connected to their shared eCloud. She hadn't touched it in ages, but something, instinct or perhaps a deeper dread, had driven her to dig it out. The screen lit up. She opened the Messages app. And there it was, a thread labeled simply, Leela. Nina hesitated, her pulse thudded in her ears. Then she tapped it open. Photos first, a kiss in low light. A blurry image of Ethan's hand on Leela's thigh. A snapshot of the two pressed together against an old red brick wall. Nina recognized it, the side of the university library, a place Ethan had once called peaceful. But the image wasn't peaceful. It was intimate, urgent, almost feral. Then the messages. Same time tomorrow. Red wall, bring that poetry book again. And that smile. I swear the way you said, existential longing, gave me actual chills. Nina stared at the screen, unmoving. The betrayal didn't come with screaming violins or crashing thunder. It came in silence, in a whisper of text and JPEGs, in digital fingerprints pressed against her ribs. She put the phone down. Didn't cry, didn't scream. She stood, walked into the kitchen, and poured herself a glass of water. Her hand didn't tremble, not even a little. Later, she sat on the edge of the bed, watching Ethan brush his teeth. He hummed to himself, some jazz tune he always played while making French press coffee. She watched the way his shoulders curved, the way his eyes met hers in the mirror for just a second, then looked away. She smiled. He didn't notice the chill behind it. The next morning, Nina walked past the bakery's floral arrangements and paused by the pantry. She made a mental note to reorder vanilla beans, then opened a small drawer beneath the cash register. Inside was a stack of unused gift boxes. Beneath them, a Polaroid camera she hadn't touched in years. She charged it, took a test shot, the machine whirred to life. Obedient, unblinking. If Ethan wanted poetry and longing in red brick shadows, she would give him a narrative he couldn't escape. At the red wall, that afternoon, she followed his calendar. Ethan had blocked out a department strategy meeting. She knew what it meant now. Nina closed the shop early, told her assistant she had a migraine. Then she went to the campus. She parked in the far lot, out of sight, walked the perimeter, waited. 4:12 p.m. Leela arrived first, dressed in a summer dress that swayed like a confession, camera slung over her shoulder. Ethan arrived at 4:19. The moment they met beneath the ivy-draped wall, Nina's breath stilled. They kissed, not just kissed, clung. Nina lifted the Polaroid, focused, snapped, once, twice, 3 times. The photos slid out, developing slowly in her palm like memories she'd never consented to. She didn't approach, didn't shout. She watched them laugh, touch foreheads, whisper into each other's skin. Then she left. The air in the car was thick. She rolled down the windows, let the photos rest on the dashboard. That night, Ethan came home with peonies. Her favorite, claimed he found them near the co-op. He placed them in a vase. Kissed her cheek. Nina looked at the flowers. "Thank you," she said. She placed one of the Polaroids inside the middle of the bouquet. He didn't find it, not that night, but soon, because secrets don't rot like food. They bloom, exponentially, and Nina, from that moment on, wasn't grieving, she was preparing, no longer the baker layering sugar over softness. She had become someone else. A curator of silence. A woman stitching betrayal into sharp threads. And the red wall, it wasn't just a place anymore. It was a memory she would make impossible to forget. The morning after Ethan brought home the peonies, Nina woke up before dawn. She stood by the kitchen window, staring at the fog lifting off the garden like a ghost shaking loose from memory. Her face was calm, her breath steady, but beneath her skin was a hum, a current of purpose that didn't exist the day before. She began with the car. Ethan always left his keys in the same bowl by the door. Nina took them and quietly stepped outside. In the still dark, she opened his glove compartment, found the GPS history, and photographed every entry from the last 3 weeks. There were patterns. Too many visits to a street near campus with no business or class listed. One location appeared repeatedly, a park bench tucked behind the university's west wing. Adjacent to the red wall. She noted the coordinates. Back inside, she reset the keys before Ethan stirred. At the bakery, while the ovens warmed and her assistant prepped pastry dough, Nina pulled up the security footage from the front camera. It ran every day from 6 a.m. to 11 p.m. She sped through timestamps. On 3 separate evenings, the camera caught Leela entering through the side alley door marked "Staff Only." Each time was after closing. Each time was within 30 minutes of Ethan claiming he was at a faculty event. In one video, Nina saw Ethan open the back kitchen door and let Leela in. He pressed her against the fridge, kissed her, then turned off the light. The feed went dark. Nina didn't look away. She downloaded the clips to a flash drive, labeled it Recipe Archive. Over the next week, she kept compiling. Ethan's email account still auto-forwarded school memos to her from when she helped organize his schedule. Now, it offered clues, cancelled meetings that matched Leela's class absences, shifts in syllabus timing, small things that only meant something if you looked closely. Nina looked very closely. She also found the journal. Not Ethan's, Leela's, left by accident at the bakery's coat rack. A small, leather-bound thing with paint stains along the edge. Nina never asked how it got there. She simply opened it. The entries were raw, artistic ramblings, quotes from philosophers, and, buried halfway through, an entire page that simply read. He says I remind him of youth. She reminds him of responsibility. But he kisses me like he's drowning. Another page. Ethan says Nina once saved his life. I wonder if he ever saved hers. That night, Nina lay awake beside her husband and remembered the car crash. 10 years ago, rain-soaked road, Ethan's small sedan wrapped around a telephone pole. Broken ribs, a collapsed lung. He had no one but her. She fed him broth through a straw, changed his dressings, stayed with him every day, never asking for anything back. Back then, she thought love was sacrifice. Now, she understood. Love was memory, and betrayal was amnesia. On Friday, she followed him again. Ethan told her he was attending a conference. Nina said nothing, just kissed his cheek and offered him a packed lunch. He never took it. She waited in her car until he left, then trailed behind. At the intersection near campus, he turned, not toward the university but into a side street. 5 minutes later, he parked behind the art museum. Nina didn't follow immediately. She knew the route. She'd already walked it that morning. She took the back path and reached the red wall before them. This time, she didn't bring the Polaroid. She brought a small audio recorder tucked in her coat pocket. They arrived, Leela giggling, Ethan touching her back like it was a reflex. Their voices echoed just enough. I wish we didn't have to hide. She doesn't suspect anything. She made me lasagna last night. Like nothing's changed. She's sweet, but you make me feel alive. Nina pressed record. They left an hour later. She stood alone beneath the ivy, listening to the wind, touching the bricks they had touched. Not imagining revenge. Not yet. Just cataloging. Just remembering. She drove home, put the recorder into a box beneath her winter sweaters, and sat at her kitchen table with a cup of tea. No tears. Not anymore, because Ethan had made his choice. And Nina, she was preparing the narrative. Every story needs its truth. Every truth, its evidence, and every piece of evidence, a place to rest, until it is needed, and when it was, she would present it like a pastry. Perfectly layered, beautifully cruel, impossible to swallow. The invitation arrived in Ethan's inbox as an elegantly worded message from a local artist collective. You are cordially invited to a private unveiling of the installation, Echoes on Brick. One night only, attendance by invitation only, location disclosed upon RSVP. He showed Nina the message, excitement flickering in his eyes. She smiled, told him it sounded fascinating. He replied yes. Leela, apparently, had received the same. That Saturday evening, the air was thick with the scent of monsoon dust and sage. The coordinates led him to the university's outdoor sculpture garden, the exact path Ethan knew so well. But this time, there were no students, no tour guides, just flickering lanterns guiding a path to the red wall. Nina had arrived hours before. She had arranged everything, hidden a high-definition camera in an unnoticeable nook beneath the ivy. The lighting was precise, harsh in its theatricality, and behind the wall, out of view, she waited. Ethan arrived first, hand in hand with Leela. She wore a flowing ivory dress, barefoot, as if the entire performance were for a camera she couldn't see. They said someone would meet us here, Leela whispered. Ethan glanced around. Maybe they're running late. They leaned against the wall, fingers interlaced, whispers close. Then he kissed her, deep, familiar, like they had done this 100 times before. That was when the sound cracked the night open. A single shot. Leela collapsed. Ethan froze, catching her just before her body fully hit the ground. Blood seeped through the thin fabric of her dress. A rose blooming where her heart used to beat. He screamed, "Help! Somebody help!" No one came. The silence was deeper than death. And then, from behind the wall, Nina stepped into the light. She didn't hold a weapon, just a small remote in one hand. Her expression was unreadable, calm, cold, precise. "Nina, what happened? You need to call an ambulance." She didn't move. Then the speaker hidden behind the lanterns buzzed, and a recording played. It was Leela's voice. "Even if she finds out, he'll choose me." Another beat of silence. Then Ethan began to cry. Not just sobs. He fell to his knees beside Leela, not touching her anymore, staring up at Nina. You were never like this," he said, voice hoarse. "You were kind, soft, you forgave everything." "No," Nina said, her voice flat. "I simply watched, and waited." "You didn't kill her," he whispered. "I didn't have to." She pressed a button. The camera light blinked. "Everything you are, Ethan, is now archived. Every word, every lie. This is your unveiling." His breath hitched. "Who did it? Who shot her?" "I suppose that's what investigations are for," she said. Police sirens finally howled in the distance, growing louder. Nina turned away. As she walked, her voice trailed behind her. One final phrase etched into the air like fog. "Some walls remember more than people ever confess." Ethan didn't move. He held his head in blood-soaked hands. Leela's body beside him, and the red wall, forever stained. The official report listed it as an unsolved shooting. A single bullet, no witnesses, no weapon recovered. The red wall bore the mark for weeks, a dark bloom on brick, before the groundskeeping team finally sandblasted it into ghosthood. But for those who had seen the footage that circulated quietly among university staff, the story lingered like an aftertaste. Ethan resigned before he could be fired. The dean never officially commented, but no other academic institution came calling. He tried to teach online courses from his small apartment, but student reviews were brutal, unfocused, distracted, creepy vibe. Within months, Ethan vanished from social circles. He stopped answering texts, deactivated his socials. Santa Fe, which once regarded him as a charming intellectual, now whispered his name like a local curse. Nina left even sooner. She sold the bakery, closed all accounts, and moved to a small desert town in Arizona. The only hint of her past was a bakery sign that read, "Dust and Sugar." She didn't advertise, she didn't join the Chamber of Commerce. But her pastries became local legend. She worked in silence, woke at dawn, kneaded dough with quiet hands and steady breath. Customers often remarked on how peaceful her presence was, like a prayer someone forgot they still needed. One regular, a woman with silver hair and a German shepherd, came every Thursday. One day, while savoring a dark chocolate tart with crimson ganache, she asked, "Why is this called the Red Wall?" Nina wiped flour from her apron, smiled gently, "Because some cravings," she said, "deserve to end bloody." The woman blinked, chuckled, thought it was metaphor. It wasn't. At night, Nina wrote in a journal. She didn't keep photos, no mementos, just words. She described the way betrayal sounds when whispered against stone. The chill of waiting behind a wall, knowing what must come next. She never wrote Leela's name. Or Ethan's. Only initials, and measurements, and recipes. She called the chapter, Confection Number 13. There was no forgiveness in her writing. No redemptive arc, only the architecture of pain. Structured like a perfect layer cake. Memory. Lie, discovery, consequence. Outside, wind painted sand against the windows. Inside, Nina wrote, "Some stains are never removed. Not from clothes, not from conscience." She closed the book, blew out the candle, and in the dark, she dreamed not of Ethan, not of justice, but of silence, the kind that follows when a story finally tells itself, and doesn't need to be told again. Sometimes, betrayal doesn't come with screaming. Sometimes, it's just a silence too heavy to carry. When trust breaks, who leaves the room first, and who stays behind with the echo? Subscribe now, because in our next story, a single pose shattered a perfect marriage. And the truth, it was right there, in the way she leaned forward, and he didn't. Coming soon, Infidelity Cases, the photograph that was never meant to be seen.